The moist, cool air of the Redwood Creek Primate Sanctuary was Coco's world, a world she shared with Dr. Aris Thorne. Coco, a gorilla of profound intelligence and an even deeper capacity for emotion, often sat in quiet contemplation, watching the world around her. She was not merely an animal in a habitat, she was a partner in a lifelong study of interspecies communication, a being whose inner life was as rich and complex as any human's. Her bond with Aris was the anchor of her existence, a silent understanding built on years of shared gestures, vocalizations, and simple, profound moments. On this particular morning, a restless energy hummed beneath her usual calm. She watched Aris, his face a mask of concentration as he jotted notes, and felt a subtle, disquieting shift in the familiar rhythm of their days. What neither of them knew was that this shift was caused by the close proximity of a dark enterprise. A few miles away, a ruthless man named Silas Vance operated a clandestine compound, a way station for exotic animals stolen from their homes. Vance was a poacher turned smuggler, his hands dirtied by the cruelest forms of exploitation. His latest acquisition was a lion cub, a tiny traumatized survivor of a brutal snatch-and-grab operation from the African savannah. This cub, too young to even roar, was destined for a life as a status symbol for a wealthy, faceless collector. One crisp afternoon, a new scent drifted on the wind, carrying a note of wildness that felt alien to the sanctuary's manicured wilderness. Coco, guided by an instinctual curiosity that Aris often marveled at, followed the scent, her powerful limbs carrying her quietly through the undergrowth. She moved with a purpose, her massive frame surprisingly nimble. She was drawn to an area far beyond the sanctuary's usual boundaries, to a cluster of makeshift sheds and fences hidden by the dense forest. Peeking through a curtain of ferns, her keen eyes took in the crude, metal-barred cage. Inside, a small golden body shivered with a fear that resonated deep within Coco. It was a lion cub, its eyes wide and hollow, a miniature portrait of despair. The sight of the cub, so small, so helpless, so utterly alone, ignited a fierce, protective instinct in Coco. She made a soft, guttural sound of distress, a low rumble of empathy for a creature she had never known, but whose suffering she understood completely. This was no fleeting moment of observation. This was the beginning of a mission. The sanctuary felt suffocating after Coco's discovery. The quiet, peaceful environment now seemed a world away from the silent suffering she had witnessed. The image of the lion cub, a tiny golden spark of life dimmed by fear, replayed in her mind. She tried to communicate her distress to Aris, using a rapid succession of sign language gestures. She pointed towards the woods, signed sad, small animal, and caged, but Aris struggled to make sense of the disjointed message. He interpreted her agitation as simple restlessness, offering her a favorite toy and a comforting touch. Coco accepted his affection, but remained preoccupied, her gaze fixed on the dense tree line. The bond between them was strong, but this was a pain she could not fully articulate, a mission she knew she had to undertake on her own. At Vance's compound, Leo, the name Coco had silently given the cub, was barely holding on. His small body was racked with hunger and thirst. The poachers, hardened and cynical, saw him as nothing more than cargo. They tossed him scraps of meat and a bowl of water with a casual cruelty that spoke volumes of their disregard for his life. Vance himself, a gaunt man with cold eyes, was already making arrangements for Leo's transport. He was an asset to be moved quickly and discreetly, another success story for his vile trade. As dusk settled, casting long purple shadows, Coco's resolve solidified. She knew she couldn't wait for Aris to understand. The cub needed her, and she was going to help. She had spent years observing the sanctuary's routines and had an almost photographic memory for details. She remembered a section of the perimeter fence, a place where a particular tree branch had weakened a section of the wire. Under the cover of night, with the full moon a soft lantern in the sky, Coco moved with a quiet purpose. She pushed through the overgrown brush, her massive shoulders barely disturbing the leaves. She found the weak point in the fence and, with a series of powerful, careful tugs, bent the wire just enough to create an opening for her to slip through. The sanctuary was behind her, its safety and comfort a distant memory. Now it was just Coco and the moonlit forest, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and an unwavering determination. She followed the trail of the cub's faint scent, a ghostly guide in the darkness. The forest, usually a place of familiarity and comfort, was now a labyrinth of potential danger. Coco moved with an almost primal stealth, her senses on high alert. She avoided the main paths, instead using the dense canopy and thick undergrowth as her cover. The distant sounds of the sanctuary were replaced by the nocturnal symphony of the wild, the rustle of unseen creatures, the hoot of an owl, the crack of a twig. Her path was illuminated by the slivers of moonlight that pierced the canopy, guiding her toward the makeshift compound. As she drew closer, she saw the dark silhouettes of the two guards lounging near a campfire, their laughter a jarring sound in the quiet woods. Their complacency was her opportunity. Inside the compound, Leo shivered in the cold night air. His small world was a cage, and the only humans he knew were the ones who had torn him from his mother. His cries had long since subsided, replaced by a deep, numbing despair. He curled into a ball, his body a monument to loneliness. He had no memory of the vast African plains, only the terror of capture and the cold indifference of his captors. Coco watched the guards for what felt like an eternity. She noticed their patterns. A brief moment when they both went to the fire to warm their hands, a time when their attention was fully on their crude meal. It was during one of these moments that she acted. Moving with surprising speed and silence, she darted toward the cages, her eyes fixed on Leo's. She reached the cage and, with her powerful fingers, located the simple latch. It was a crude, easy-to-defeat mechanism. She worked at it carefully, her hands far more precise than a human's could be. With a soft click, the latch gave way. The cage door swung open. Leo, startled by the sound, backed away, his small frame trembling. Coco made a series of low, reassuring vocalizations, her gaze soft and steady. She extended a hand, palm open, a silent promise of safety. Leo, seeing something in her eyes that was not malice but genuine compassion, hesitated for a moment. He took a tentative step forward and, with a final desperate leap of faith, nuzzled his head into Coco's palm. It was a connection that transcended species, a moment of profound, wordless trust. Please subscribe to our channel to follow Coco and Leo's incredible story. Remember, this is a work of fiction. The cage door was open, and the tiny lion cub Leo was free, but their escape had only just begun. The roar of the fire and the low chatter of the guards provided a temporary sound cover. Coco, understanding the urgency of the situation, gently nudged Leo, guiding him towards the rear of the compound. The cub, still dazed and weak, followed her lead, his small paws stumbling over the uneven ground. Coco moved with a deliberate slowness, her powerful limbs careful not to rush or frighten her fragile companion. But their luck was short-lived. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the campfire, and the ensuing quiet made the rustle of Coco's movement far more noticeable. One of the guards, a man named Butch, a rough-looking individual with a permanent scowl, glanced towards the cages. He saw the open door and the empty space where the cub had been. A moment of confusion turned to rage. "He's gone!" he bellowed, his voice carrying through the silent woods. The other guard, a younger man named Roy, scrambled to his feet, fumbling for his rifle. Coco heard the shouts and knew she had to move. Her heart pounded, a heavy drum in her chest. She saw a dense patch of thorny bushes, a natural fortress of twisted branches and prickly leaves. It was their only chance. She pushed through the sharp branches, wincing as thorns snagged at her thick fur, but she paid the pain no mind. She was a shield. Leo, smaller and more nimble, darted in behind her, seeking the safety of her massive body. They crouched low in the suffocating darkness of the thicket, the thorns a painful but necessary barrier. The sound of the guards' heavy boots grew louder, their frantic shouts echoing closer and closer. Coco held her breath, her powerful muscles tense, her body a fortress around the terrified cub. She felt his small body trembling against her and instinctively pulled him tighter. The guards moved past their hiding place, their angry voices fading as they assumed the cub had fled deeper into the open forest. After what felt like an eternity, the sounds of the search died away, and the two unlikely companions were left alone again. Their hearts still pounding in the quiet. They had survived, but their journey back was only beginning. With the immediate danger of the compound behind them, Coco's focus shifted to the arduous journey back to the sanctuary. The small, exhausted lion cub was a burden she carried with a mother's fierce love. She moved at a deliberate pace, her large hands often gently prodding him along or lifting him over particularly difficult terrain. She was a protector, a guide, and a source of unwavering comfort. Leo in turn clung to her, his small paws occasionally stumbling, but his trust in her was absolute. Their escape had forged a bond of shared trauma and survival that transcended the natural order. Coco's immense knowledge of the local forest, a result of decades of observation, was their greatest asset. She knew the best routes, the hidden streams where they could drink, and the berry bushes that offered sustenance. She even foraged for food for Leo, though her diet was vastly different from his. She offered him various plants and fruits, instinctively knowing his small, growing body needed more than just water. The days blended into a slow, deliberate march towards safety, a testament to Coco's unwavering determination. They faced small setbacks, a sudden downpour that soaked them to the bone, a difficult river crossing where Coco had to lift Leo onto her back and carry him across, and the constant fear of being discovered. Coco's senses were a finely tuned instrument, picking up on the faintest scent of danger, the slightest sound of an approaching animal or person. She taught Leo to be quiet, a gentle nudge of her hand over his mouth when a sound might betray them. Their journey was a beautiful, desperate dance of survival, a silent conversation between two different species united by a single purpose: to find a safe haven. Coco was driven by a deep sense of responsibility, a powerful instinct to nurture and protect this small life she had saved. Back at the sanctuary, a palpable sense of dread had settled over the staff. Coco's absence had been discovered during the early morning rounds, and the search efforts, led by a frantic and heartbroken Aris, were in full swing. Aris, whose bond with Coco was a cornerstone of his life, was sick with worry. He had sent out multiple search teams, his mind racing with 100 different scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. The trackers reported finding Coco's tracks leading away from the sanctuary, but the trail went cold after a few miles. Iris refused to give up, pushing his teams further and further into the dense, unforgiving forest, his calls of "Coco!" a desperate plea carried on the wind. He could not fathom why she would leave. What force could have compelled her to abandon the safety she had always known? His only hope was that her legendary intelligence and instinct would keep her safe. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky with fiery hues of orange and purple. Coco, her powerful body weary from the day's journey, found a suitable spot to rest for the night. She chose a sheltered nook beneath a massive, sprawling oak tree, its ancient roots providing a natural backrest. The air was growing cooler, and Leo, still weak and exhausted, curled up against Coco's warm, fur-covered side, his small body a fragile knot of exhaustion. Coco, with an almost human tenderness, gently groomed his matted fur with her large, surprisingly delicate fingers. The night was a symphony of alien sounds for Leo, the distant howl of a coyote, the rustle of unseen rodents, and the sharp snap of a twig in the darkness. Each sound made the cub flinch, his small body tensing. But each time, Coco's reassuring touch and low, comforting vocalizations would soothe him, a silent promise of protection. She remained vigilant, her senses on high alert, her massive form a living fortress around the sleeping cub. She was a mother to him, a guardian born of a circumstance as unlikely as it was beautiful. As dawn approached, a new energy coursed through Coco's veins. The scent of the sanctuary was growing stronger, its familiar smells of human habitation and well-tended greenery a welcome beacon. She nudged Leo awake, and they resumed their journey. Their pace was slow but steady. Coco began to recognize more and more landmarks, a specific mossy rock, a stream where she had often drunk, a winding path she and Aris would sometimes walk. They were almost home. Meanwhile, Aris's search team was on the verge of giving up. Their hopes were fading with each passing hour. A weary tracker, about to call it a day, noticed something odd in the soft earth near a stream. Clear, distinct tracks, large gorilla prints, but beside them were smaller, unmistakably feline paw prints. The tracker's heart leapt in his chest. He immediately radioed Aris, his voice a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. Aris's heart soared. Coco wasn't just safe, she had a companion. A feeling of profound relief, mixed with a deep-seated curiosity, washed over him. He directed the team towards the stream, his mind a whirlwind of questions and wonder. The discovery of the dual tracks energized the team, transforming their despondent search into a mission fueled by a mysterious hope. They pressed on, their weariness forgotten, their conversation now filled with theories and speculation. What animal was Coco with? Why? Aris, a scientist by profession, felt his mind grappling with an unexplainable phenomenon. He had never heard of a gorilla forming such a bond with a predator, let alone a cub. The tracks, however, were irrefutable proof. They led them closer and closer to Coco's location, a silent breadcrumb trail of her incredible journey. Aris's heart, a heavy stone of worry for days, now beat with a different rhythm, one of hope, anticipation, and an almost overwhelming sense of pride in his extraordinary friend. Following the trail of the unlikely duo, Aris and his team moved with a renewed sense of purpose. The tracks told a silent story of a long journey, of a powerful gorilla and a small, delicate feline moving together. The sight was so unusual, so against the natural order, that the team was filled with a sense of awe and anticipation. As they rounded a gentle bend in the path, they saw them. Coco sat in a sun-dappled clearing, her massive form a picture of serenity. Cradled gently in her lap was a tiny lion cub, its golden coat a stark contrast to Coco's dark fur. The scene was one of pure, unadulterated tenderness. The search party stood in stunned silence, their earlier worries replaced by a profound sense of wonder. Aris approached slowly, his voice a gentle murmur, careful not to startle them. "Coco," he called. Coco's head lifted, her eyes meeting his. In their depths was a mix of relief, exhaustion, and a silent plea. She gestured towards the cub, a series of quick, expressive signs. "Sad," she signed. "Bad men. Cage." She then pointed in the direction of the poacher's compound. Aris's heart sank as he understood. Coco hadn't run away. She had gone on a rescue mission. He knelt, his gaze locked with Coco's, a deep admiration and understanding in his eyes. He gently reached out a hand, and Leo, still wary, nuzzled closer to Coco's protective embrace. Aris saw the cub's malnourished state, the signs of recent trauma, and his admiration for Coco grew exponentially. She had not only faced down poachers, but had also risked everything to save a creature she was not even related to. The rest of the team, speechless, gathered around, their faces a mixture of wonder and respect for the incredible animal before them. The moment was a powerful convergence of science and emotion. Aris, a man of logic and data, found himself standing in the presence of an event that defied all his training and knowledge. Coco's actions were not based on survival or instinct in the traditional sense, but on a higher form of empathy and moral courage. The silence of the clearing was broken only by the quiet hum of the forest and the soft purr of the cub, a sound of contentment that was a direct result of Coco's actions. The team's wonder gave way to a collective mission: to get Coco and Leo back to the sanctuary and ensure they were both safe. The return to the sanctuary was a triumphal procession. The team carried Leo, now wrapped in a warm blanket, his small body exhausted but safe. Coco walked beside them, a silent guardian, her gaze fixed on the cub. The moment they arrived, the sanctuary's staff, who had been on edge with worry, erupted in a mixture of cheers and gasps of amazement. The sight of Coco and the cub was a living legend unfolding before their eyes. Dr. Lena Hansen, the sanctuary's veterinarian, immediately took charge of Leo's medical care. She conducted a thorough examination, her face a mixture of professional concern and personal awe. She confirmed that while Leo was severely malnourished and dehydrated, he had no major injuries. He was placed in a specialized, heated enclosure, and a carefully monitored feeding schedule was established. Coco, though separated for medical reasons, was never far. She watched from her own enclosure, a keen and protective eye on Leo. Aris made sure they had regular contact, understanding that their bond was integral to both of their well-beings. Through the protective mesh, Coco would make soft, reassuring sounds, and Leo, his body healing, would respond with playful purrs and tentative swats at her hand. Meanwhile, Aris's reports to the authorities, filled with Coco's astonishingly accurate testimony, led to a full-scale investigation into Vance's operation. The information provided a crucial link, giving law enforcement the location of the compound and the nature of the illegal trade. The story, a human-gorilla alliance against a poaching ring, was the catalyst for a full-court press on Vance and his crew. The sanctuary was no longer just a place of quiet research. It had become the center of a remarkable crime-fighting saga. The synergy between Coco's non-verbal communication and Aris's scientific interpretation was nothing short of miraculous. Coco's gestures, her signs for bad men, cages and sad, provided law enforcement with the critical pieces of the puzzle they needed to connect the dots and pinpoint Vance's operation. The information she provided was more than just a tip. It was a blueprint of the poacher's activities, a silent testimony that spoke volumes. The sanctuary staff, once solely focused on animal care and research, now found themselves a crucial part of a major criminal investigation, their peaceful lives transformed by the bravery of one gorilla and the helplessness of one cub. The law enforcement investigation, fueled by the evidence from Coco's actions and Aris's detailed report, quickly bore fruit. Raids were conducted on Vance's compound and several other properties, leading to the rescue of more illegally trafficked animals and the discovery of a vast criminal network. Silas Vance, realizing the net was closing in, made a desperate attempt to flee. But with the full resources of law enforcement on the case, he was apprehended near a state border crossing, his cruel reign of animal exploitation brought to an end. The charges against him were extensive, and his conviction was swift and definitive, a direct consequence of a gorilla's bravery. News of the gorilla who rescued a lion cub from poachers spread like wildfire across the globe. Coco became a symbol of courage and compassion, her story a powerful testament to the emotional depth of animals. People from all walks of life, from conservationists to schoolchildren, were captivated by the tale of interspecies friendship and heroism. The Redwood Creek Primate Sanctuary became a focal point for global attention, a place where a powerful story of empathy had unfolded. Leo, now thriving under the sanctuary's expert care, was a different animal. His fear had been replaced by a playful confidence. His relationship with Coco continued to be a source of wonder. Eris and his team continued to facilitate their interactions, watching with quiet amazement as the powerful gorilla and the young lion shared moments of peaceful coexistence, a beautiful anomaly in the animal kingdom. Their story was more than just a rescue. It was a living, breathing example of the universal language of love and protection. The international attention brought with it a wave of activism and support. The sanctuary's social media channels and website were flooded with messages of admiration and pledges of support. Celebrities and public figures spoke out about the story, using their platforms to shed light on the brutal reality of animal trafficking. The story of Coco and Leo became a worldwide phenomenon, a modern-day fable that transcended language and culture, proving that a single act of kindness, no matter how small or unexpected, could have a profound and lasting impact on the world. The sanctuary's once quiet existence was now a vibrant hub of education and advocacy, all thanks to the courageous actions of one extraordinary gorilla. The sanctuary, once a quiet research facility, was now a global monument to compassion. Coco and Leo's story had a ripple effect, inspiring a new wave of conservation efforts and raising an unprecedented amount of awareness about the illegal wildlife trade. The sanctuary, now flush with donations, was able to expand its facilities, rescue more animals, and create educational programs to teach others about the importance of protecting endangered species. Leo, now a healthy, robust young lion, was ready for the next phase of his life. After careful consultation with wildlife experts, it was decided that he would be relocated to a specialized wildlife reserve where he could live in a natural pride setting, with the space and companions he needed to thrive. The decision, though difficult, was for his ultimate good. The reserve was a place of vast open spaces, a new home that mimicked the world he was stolen from. On the day of his departure, a quiet stillness fell over the sanctuary. Coco sat near the transport crate, watching as Leo was carefully loaded inside. There was a sense of sadness in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the end of a beautiful chapter. As the transport vehicle pulled away, Coco stood and made a series of gentle, slow gestures, a silent, profound farewell. Aris stood beside her, his hand resting on her back. "He'll be okay, Coco," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "He'll be free because of you." Coco looked at him, and in her deep, knowing eyes, Aris saw not just a gorilla, but a hero, a guardian, and a friend. Her actions had not only saved a single life, but had also illuminated the boundless capacity for courage and compassion that exists in all living things. The story of the gorilla and the lion cub would forever be a reminder of a powerful truth, that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes are found in the most unexpected places. As the transport vehicle disappeared from view, Aris watched Coco, her gaze still fixed on the empty space where the truck had been. He knew she understood. The bond between them was more than just a caregiver and an animal. It was a deep, mutual respect. Aris recognized that his role in Coco's life was not to simply study her, but to learn from her. Coco's rescue of Leo was a powerful lesson in empathy, a testament to the idea that true compassion knows no boundaries of species or language. The sanctuary would continue its work, but it would forever be guided by the memory of a gorilla's love and a lion cub's trust, a reminder that the greatest stories are often the ones written by the heart.